Hi, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek online podcast. This is episode 125. My name is Chris, and I want to say good morning to all of the great folks in the jblive.tv chat room who've joined me this Friday evening to do a special Friday edition of Stoked. Hi, everybody, and welcome. We have a big show today. We're announcing some changes in the format of Stoked, and the show will be going through another transition point. And I want to give you the details about that, as well as some of the shows that some of the things you're familiar with about this show will be spun off onto their own independent podcast. We've teased that for a little while, and we'll have that information too. That'll be coming up towards the end of community feedback, so don't go anywhere. Stay here for that. And then also in the news roundtable, we'll give you a sneak peek at some of the new stuff that's hit Tribble. Nothing spoiler worthy. Just there's a new siege mode. I don't know how you just wave after wave of bad guy that hit the game that I got a chance to play for a few minutes before they took Tribble down this evening. And I'll share my shots from that and also some of my thoughts. It was a lot of fun, so I think you'll like to see that. Before we go, I'd like to remind everybody you can use our affiliate links if you'd like to support the network. You can find those down at the bottom of jupiterbroadcasting.com. And also, as we go, if we say something that, because today's episode will probably get a lot of you thinking, please email us your feedback, stoked@jupiterbroadcasting.com. We'll try to keep reviewing those as we go forward. So why don't I quit dancing on the issue? Let's just move right along. Let's jump into the news roundtable. Welcome to the news roundtable. Mav's here. Hey there, Mav.
How's it going?
Good. And we're going to go through a few news items from this week. The good stuff's coming up after we get through some of our vegetables first. First of all, I want to talk about a new Foundry Spotlight because I really encouraged Cryptic to do this, and I'm really happy to see that this is actually happening now, and I want to give it full attention. And also, Time the Enemy is a Foundry mission we actually featured in the Foundry Files on the show a while back.
Go figure.
There you have it. Do you remember what the rating was for that one?
From what I was told from the Foundry File guys, the rating on that was a 7.43. Now, I don't have all the statistics on it, but I found it very interesting that we had already covered this way back when, and now it's a Spotlight mission.
Well, that's good, though. I mean, they don't have to go by just the ones we've covered.
No, of course not.
Although those ones have gotten a lot of coverage, but
yes, they have.
Yeah. All right. Well, so there you go. Check it out, folks. You can find the link in the show notes for that. Now, something else that happened this week for one of the first times is Gates of STOked. I think we've talked about them before on the show. They did a new guest blog post over on StarTrekOnline.com, and I thought it was kind of a neat thing. It's for KDF players, right, Matt?
Yes, for KDF players. And apparently it looks like it's a intro, almost like a formal declarated intro to the KDF and what they're all about. Oh, trying to just bring some more info. You figure you got the Spotlight on the Foundry is a Klingon mission written by Haverha. You've got now the Gates of STOked doing kind of like a formal intro to the KDF. So they're starting to show a little bit more Klingon love out there, which is really neat.
It's cool. That's cool and all, but what I am really looking forward to talking to about today is actually some new content. Now, I got to walk a fine line when it comes to Season 6 content on Tribble because I don't want to spoil too much.
Right.
But at the same time, I got you could almost call it like a horde mode, but I got my hands on the no-win scenario mission today, and you had a chance to play it too, right?
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't had a chance to, or you have never been on Tribble before, a lot of what we do for Stoked and Jupiter Force is when we try to prep these episodes for Stoked, we go on Tribble and we spend massive amount of time on Tribble testing everything that they put out there. Every time something new comes out, every time there's a new patch, we go on there, we figure out what it is and so on and so forth, and we get it out there. Right now we were testing the new Space and Ground, the what they call the no-win scenario. Now I know people have beat it already, so
have they?
Nice. Yeah, I believe Sad Pandas has beat it. From what I was told today, and they have little images on the Stowe forums. I don't have a link for you yet, but hopefully we'll have that ready for you.
That's awesome.
But what it is it is a 5-person. You can either pug it or team it or whatnot. It's basically 10 waves of a randomly selected enemy when you arrive. The objective is to, you really can't really spoil it because it's probably going to change a little bit as it moves along. But right now, as it stands, you have to protect a transport. And your space, and what's nice about it is you can also use your space abilities like engineering, team, transfer, shield strength, and so on and so forth to keep it alive longer.
Yeah.
But you got a 5-man team, and you're hit with wave upon wave upon wave of enemies.
30 seconds or so between each wave. Now, I didn't do any thorough testing. I just jumped on this afternoon before they brought the server down, and I had a blast. I can see maybe it getting a little old after a while, but one thing that I think kind of helps freshen it up is, like you mentioned, it's a randomly generated bad guy. So while this time it was the Romulans, next time
For
I
you,
go
it was,
in,
For you, it was Romulans. For me, it was God darn it, the Breen.
Oh, okay, cool. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So that would kind of keep it fresh, and I like that they actually are going after that little transport freighter because that gives it a little extra challenge to it.
Now, you sat there and said, oh, there's 30 seconds wait time between the waves. Actually, the wait time shortens the further up the waves you go. So
yeah, I was going to say, I only noticed it one time. Okay.
That first wave, you're sitting there going, okay, that was fine. And then the next wave comes, and you're like, oh, okay, I can handle this. And you figure you get all this rest time. But then I noticed as you get about 6 or 7, that wait time cuts down to maybe about 5 or 10 seconds if you're lucky.
I got all the way through the third wave, and then that's when they brought Tribble down. And it felt like, honestly, at that point, it kind of felt like the 5th wave. It takes, it does progressively get harder. It starts out really easy. So it's an interesting kind of endless content, but I don't think I could see myself. This seems like something I'd play occasionally when I just want to go blow some stuff up, which happens actually, especially like after I have a new build. This would be great for new build testing, that kind of thing.
What's also nice is this is a way to not have to, and I'm going to say this because people have been out there and have done it, cheat like the Foundry system and build these quick kill missions. Because each instance could be a different enemy, you can literally get your space kills and your accolades from this. So, it's the legit way to farm accolades. And I was getting damage accolades, energy weapon accolades, healing accolades. So it's for accolade hunters, it's going to be very interesting, and without knowing which enemy's popping up, you're kind of in the shoot for that.
I didn't even realize you got accolades. I didn't get any during play testing.
Yeah, once you get past the third wave, the accolades start to roll in and kick in.
Cool. Well, so that's neat. Also, while we were playing around, we noticed that there's some new visual animations, like a lot of new effects. Some actually, I don't even recognize what they are yet because I haven't played them long enough, but there's several different, almost all of the science effects have been changed. One of the ones that looked the coolest. One of the ones that looked the coolest was the Tychon's Rift, where it actually looks like a rip in space now.
Space,
yeah. So, that's some nice polish that we're seeing. Stuff that, you don't really know. Oh, look, here's a visual of it right here. Stuff that you don't even really know to look for. And then all of a sudden when you see it, you're like, oh, that was so cool. Here we're showing Mav got some footage earlier that I'm playing for you guys on the show here. They all look really cool. I noticed some issues with tractor beams, but that's just testing stuff. That's why we're on there testing it, right?
I noticed an issue when I went in with the tachyon detection grid.
Yeah.
That lovely little griefer where it sends those nice little blue beams to every ship you're playing with. Yeah, that was a little griefing for a little bit. I'm hoping they'll fine tune that or maybe change it just a little bit.
Here's the new rebalancing shields animation.
Yeah, there's some really, I think they've done some really neat things with some of the graphics and animations. It makes things feel a little fresh. Like I was sitting there looking at it going, oh, look at that power, just little things to make it feel a lot newer. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised and pleased by this event, even as it says on testing right now.
And it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
And now I did notice, and I'm going to say this with a disclaimer, again, it's on Tribble, things can change. But what I did notice also, no lock boxes.
Well, that's because it's on Tribble, yeah.
Right, it's on Tribble, and I understand that, but I like it.
I know. When I was playing through it, somebody mentioned, you notice no lock boxes. Like,
yeah, now
I do notice.
I may be slammed for this because people have already heard my opinion about lock boxes, and then there's people who love the lock boxes.
And we've even said we shouldn't be talking about lock boxes.
Right, and everybody's entitled to them. But for this kind of event, first of all, to me, it would have been a distraction, but it was so pleasing to not have to worry about that. Oh, also, speaking of which, the regular drops now, when a drop is designed for you, when a drop is yours now, it gives this light spire from the actual drop. So it helps you not only see your drop versus everybody else's, because for a while it was like, well, is that yours? Is that his? Is that theirs? Now you get a bright yellow light spire that comes from it to help you spot your drop. So that's
a lot better too. It's very eye catching.
Yeah,
it's like corner of the eye kind of a thing. Yeah. So season 6 is looking good now. I'm pleased to actually see some fruits of season 6 because I've been really worried about the state it's in. We're seeing bits and pieces of it. There was recently an article published about star bases, but I felt like it was just kind of a fluff piece that didn't really go into any actual mechanical detail on how we'd be using these things.
Yeah.
I'd still like to see that information out there. I've asked for it, but unfortunately, I'm told the information is under embargo until June, so I can't tell you.
Right.
So I haven't asked for it. If I can't tell you folks out there what the answers are, I'm not going to
We're not going to bring it up. Yeah.
So, but
as soon as we can, we'll bring it to you.
Hey, what's on Tribble? We can see, we can play with, we can get our hands on, and we can talk about it. And I don't know, I like it. So, Mav, I think it's just a short news segment this week, unless there's anything else you want to cover.
Yeah, pretty sure it was just those two, and then giving props to Gates of Stovacor for writing that little descriptive narrative. You can always check it out right there. From the Star Trek Online main website,
and link in the show notes to that. All right, Mav, we'll start. Make sure you got your mail sack handy, because we're gonna need to reach into that, because it's time for community feedback. And welcome to Community Feedback. So last week, we asked you for your ideas on PvP map functionality. And also, I did tease at the top of the show that we have some big announcements to make. We'll be doing that at the end of Community Feedback, so stay through the whole segment for that. But Mav, did we get some feedback as far as the question from last week? Did some people send in some ideas?
Yeah, I got a couple of emails, and I was going through them, and without naming all kinds of names, I basically got 5 emails, and then they were just loaded with stuff. So I picked the few that kind of caught my attention, and a few that were like, okay. So one of them was, why don't they have, for PvP, why don't they add gravity traps or gravity controls or poisonous gas, stuff like that, different gas traps that you can put up. And even one person said, well, why don't they have like escort type missions where you guard one person. Interestingly, when we got that email, the 5-man no-win hadn't come out yet. And so the concept is actually there where you can sit here and guard a target, and so on and so forth. So that may be something that they could integrate in PvP as it moves along. I'm sure if they get enough attention for it, it might be added.
Right.
Okay. And then people were saying different melee maps, small maps, big maps. We know the different maps are coming. We know that the prison planet map is eventually supposed to come into PvP. So
yeah, the facility 4028, right?
4028. So, without really knowing where right now, for me, the mechanics of what they're planning to change in PvP is more important than the maps. At least right now. Now, I'm not saying maps aren't important and new areas aren't important. Don't get me wrong. But I want to know what they're changing as far as the mechanic for PvP. Are they giving us more options? Right. Are they changing existing options? And some of the other options somebody was saying was, and they were taking a spot from Champions Online, the zombie apocalypse, where a player gets chosen as a zombie and tries to convert other players, thereby defeating them.
So you could do something like a player gets assimilated by the Borg.
Right, exactly. So you figure one guy's the Borg, and he's going to run around and try to assimilate other people. It's everybody's objective to eliminate the host, and then everybody else he infects, or game's over and the guy wins, or however they want to do it. But I thought that was interesting, an interesting infection map. You set one team of Borg players that can see that's one of the mechanic that I would love to have. Right now, Fed, Klingon, cool. Okay, we got it. But wouldn't it be interesting to be able to sit there and say, okay, these are the teams. Team A is now selecting to be, Breen, and Team B is selecting to be Defiri. Whatever, reenact the war for all I know.
Right.
Okay. I thought that would be kind of cool to be able to select the faction you want to play. This way, they may not have a full faction storyline. It's something you use as a supplement to kind of tease people and keep people interested. So you could literally have Romulans versus this. Now,
I guess the difficulty would be the weapons, right? You'd have to make sure that they had character appropriate or
right. You select it, and that set, when you select to be that entity, all your players would get to choose that set. Like, okay, who's going to be an engineer? Okay, they get this weapon, this ability. It's kind of preset table, unless they go really verbose and allow you to sit there and select your teams and weapons. And I've seen other games like I remember I used to play a game called SWAT, and you would select your breach leader and your support guy, and they would be able to select which weapons and grenades and whatnot that they were carrying into combat, so they could specifically set a tool set. I think that would really make PvP very interesting.
I could see that being fun. The only thing you get is people that want to be the ultimate builders that have specific builds they want to do in PvP. They want their custom gear and their custom stuff that they've grinded for and all those kinds of things, where dropping them in one character would sort of take away some of that stuff. So you still have to find a way to sort of have a happy medium there, I think.
You got to find a balance, there's where you can sit there and say and select open rule PvP. Anybody can bring in whatever they currently have on their character. Okay, that solves that problem. Or you can select limited, but you set the tables and you set the rules before the match begins.
Well, what about you could take any of your buffs? Come on, we could go crazy. You take any of your buffs and you take them to a PvP arena, and then you just sit back as the captain and let them go.
Right.
Any other emails that provoked any thoughts?
Let's see. Somebody said DC Universe Online. I don't have a lot of experience with DCU Online.
I've only played it very lightly.
I played it very little, but they were saying something about being able to play as captain in space and use ships and kit powers for a predetermined time, and just interesting little things, and then have other unlockable bonuses for PvP in the C-Store. I'm sure if it's something that they can put in the C-Store, it'll get there eventually. Capture the flag. Now that we already have something like that where it's in the game where you take the virus over to the other one, but a real solid capture the flag where you capture enemy stations or neutral stations, and as you capture the station, the turrets or whatever for that station become yours to assist in defending that station.
Like a ground capture and hold kind of thing?
Right, like a real capture and hold.
Like you're on a ship and it's an invasion party on the ship, and they're trying to take over your bridge, they're trying to take over engineering.
The ultimate fail is if the captain manages to make it to blow up the ship with auto-destruct, whereas the other team can go and sabotage systems to prevent auto-destruct. I thought that would be kind of interesting. Somebody in the chat room said large battles like 40 versus 40. We did kind of mention that last week when we were talking about the Call to Arms episode from Deep Space Nine, where massive, huge fleet battles. Mm-hmm. Also, I would like to see, and this is my personal thing, I would like to see a sector space conquest type system. Now, what I mean by that is that, if we're only going to have two factions and we're still going to feed into this Klingon fed war, that as the Klingons occupy certain sections or do certain missions, their conquest points go up. As their conquest points go up, vendors in the sector will cost less for the Klingons and it costs less for the Klingons, more for the Fed. And then they can sit there and allow them, hopefully, maybe we can tie this into the starbase system, they'll be able to build starbases or mini stations or planetary defenses that if they want to hold for resources that they can't. Again, it would be nice to see implemented. I don't quite know how.
Yeah.
Right, somebody said like some of the old Unreal Tournament game types. I think a conquest system in this game would really enhance PvP, especially if you're just going to continue to have two factions. But then if you can imagine, just for a second, a conquest system where the other factions, and they don't necessarily have to have storylines. I know people always are interested in story content, but let's just say they had a conquest system where it's not only Fed, it's not only Klingon, and you can build alliances, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. You can temporarily do treaties and ceasefires and alliances and team up. Then you have the Romulan, the Remans, the Ferengi, the Tholians, whatever other factions out there. All of a sudden you've got, a just galactic-wide conquest system that's a complete offshoot from the main storyline, but just something to add to the immersion of the experience. I think that would be great. That would be awesome. And then to the ability to use the DOFs, say if you really don't want to get into a fight right now, but you can send DOF missions to affect the conquest system.
DOF doing PvP.
Yeah,
I love it.
Well, DOFs doing PvP or DOFs influencing the conquest
system. That could be a good way if you have a player who wants to be an active member in some sort of a fleet that has a territory battle going, but they don't want to contribute battle-wise. They could contribute DOF.
Right, they don't want to contribute battle-wise because they figure, if their ship gets destroyed, that's a huge conquest loss. But I've got a boatload of DOFs. I'll just keep, I'll invade the sector real quick, send a bunch of DOFs on a mission, and then bail out. Let them do what they can to do sabotage, and then reap the rewards for that conquest.
Yeah,
I thought that would be interesting.
Cool.
I don't know how to put it down on paper, but believe me, if I could, I'd submit it. Maybe you guys can shoot me some ideas on how to quite get that down.
All right. Well, any other ones that provoked your thoughts?
Let's see here. I see the capture and hold.
Some good ones.
Massive PvP maps. Again, we're hoping. Somebody said large asteroid fields, interacting ships. It would be interesting if they, especially with space PvP battles, and I've said this before, they should set it so that in PvP battles, if your ship is killed, you're done. You're out. No respawning. Okay, this way there's more of an imminent threat to save yourself as well and use smarter tactics, not just zerg and pug something.
Yeah.
This way it's like, you know what? I understand I'm in an escort. I understand that I'm only going to be able to take so much pounding. So it builds that strategic strategy in the mind. Hit and bail, hit and bail. And then you get science ships that are designed for healing. Somebody said, especially when it comes to space, and like the capture the flag scenario, certain points on the map when you're able to take control of it, the spatial defense, the orbital defenses will come up to assist you. But if you could also be able to dock and quickly repair or reload and heal your crew and then take off instead of that over the time, getting those healing bonuses. I thought that was also very interesting that they could add to it. Adding other maps like reenactment of Wolf 359.
Oh, interesting.
And so on.
How you'd have to have players? That sounds more like PvE.
Probably you can do PvE and PvP. Yeah. It could be PvE, but yeah, I guess it wouldn't be a PvP thing. It'd be really difficult unless, again, you go back to that faction A is the Borg, faction A is the Borg, faction B is the Fed or Klingon under alliance, and let's have at it.
Yeah, I agree. That might be kind of fun.
Yep, that's something that I would definitely try to do. But I'm really big on the huge sector conquest and occupation thing. I don't remember what games I got that from, but it's something that I'm sure would really, really appease the group at large.
All right, well, thank you everybody for sending in your PvP ideas to us. Those are some fascinating reads. And if we didn't get yours on the air, we still read it. And thank you for sending those in. Now, I teased about it a little bit at the top of the show in the beginning of this segment, but Stoked is facing another big transition. And the show's been through a lot of them. Heck, it started as an audio podcast and a 3-man show at that, just the 3 of us. And then later on, it was changed to just a 2-person team, the J-Man and myself. And later on in the show's life, too, we also formed Jupiter Force. And when the J-Man stepped away to take a job at Cryptic, the Jupiter Force really stepped up, and we replaced Jeremy with a whole fleet of people. And it's been like that now for 14, 15 weeks, or 20 weeks? I mean, how long have we...
Yeah, it's been a while since... pretty much ever since we did the episode 100, 101, break up there.
Right. But, recently I've been doing a lot of evaluation in terms of Stoke's production time and the return on the value we see for that as a business, because I am doing Jupiter Broadcasting full-time, and we've had a couple of recent cost increases, and we've also had donation drop-offs. And the combination of the two have put me in a financially significantly enough of a financial bind that I've actually taken on some contract work to make up for lost income on the network. And unfortunately, that means I have to reduce my workload on the network. And Stoked is the next show up for that nomination. Now, we've done some polling, and do you think we should? We could put the poll out in this show.
Well, yeah, we can put the poll up. Yeah, we can pull the poll back up again.
In fact, I'll get the poll while we talked. I think it's just bit.ly/Stoked poll. And we polled the people and we asked, would you like Stoked to transition to Stoked Radio, a new version of Stoked in audio form in place of no show? Because honestly, it's getting to the point now where I can't continue the show. But things are really starting to heat up in Stoked. We've got season 6 just around the corner. We're just starting to see some of that. We've got a whole fleet behind the show that's still passionate about these things. Mav's still involved and getting more involved in the Stowe podcast scene all the time. So we've thought about transitioning to something new. Mav, do you want to talk about it for a little bit? Any ideas there?
Yeah. For the chat room, I've gone ahead and put the link there live again for you to continue to vote. And votes are still pouring in. Here's what's going on here with the transition. What it is we're going to transition, or we're attempting to transition to Stoked Radio to alleviate some of the burden on Jupiter Broadcasting. Jupiter Force itself is going to pick it up. What that means is that I will be taking over as primary host. Jeremy, whenever he's available from Cryptic, we'll try to get him on like normal. Chris, again, if he's available to come on the show, we'll have him on there as well.
Yeah, and I think for the first few episodes, I'll try to make myself available during the transition too, so that way it's a familiar voice and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll come on when I have something really great that I really am passionate to talk about. And that's what I'm hoping is, I'll just sit back, and when something really gets me and I really feel like I'm motivated to talk about it, I'll come on and I'll chat about it.
So for the most part, Stoked itself is going to retire, and we're going to bring on Stoked Radio, what we're calling Stoked the Next Generation. And it's going to be primarily driven and hosted by us at Jupiter Force. You're still going to get the same kind of content as far as the way the show flows. And what we're going to do is, instead of primarily being video, we're going to primarily be audio, and we're going to release video supplements. So anything as far as heavy-duty content that we talk about that we're able to demonstrate, you guys will be able to download and watch videos either via YouTube or direct off of Jupiter Broadcasting for whatever reason to supplement that video. Because I know a lot of people, and I've talked to a few people, where they say they normally listen to the show while they play the game, or if they try to watch the video and play the game, they can't focus on both and they end up missing stuff. So what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to listen to the show, pick up on the show notes, and if we have a video source or images from the show that we do audio, you'll be able to still pick it up and look at it. So you'll be able to pick it up.
And the question that's coming through in the chat room is, we'll still publish to the Stoked feed. So if you're a subscriber in iTunes or in your RSS client, you'll still get the show. And also, Mav has worked a lot closely now with Trek Radio, so you may see the show syndicated or broadcast live on Trek Radio as well. And as we, at least during the beginning transition, and we'll just see how people respond, we'll simul broadcast on jblive.tv like we always have. It might be a new time, but we'll do it there, and it'll be available on the Jupiter Broadcasting website for download, at least for a while, and then we'll see how people gauge it, and we'll just adjust accordingly to that. And also, Mav, there's some positive aspects to it too. We're taking the Foundry files, and the guys at the Foundry files are going to spin that off into their own show over at Starbase UGC. They're working on the details right now. And I think that's a good thing, because we can take some of those resources and still give something to the community every single week. And they'll still visit Stoked Radio and cover it that way as well. So it's a big transition, but I think it could end up being the best type of long-term sustainable transition the show can take. And it gives me a chance to come on and just share when I'm really excited about something and not have to slog through the stuff that honestly just kind of brings me down. And I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, what's going to happen basically is, if for whatever reason, and this is my future thoughts for Stoked Radio, if things pick up and the game all of a sudden becomes this fantastic product that we were all hoping, or that we all remember back in season 2, season 3, where we're talking about this and we're talking about that, it's something that I can easily network with Chris and say, hey, Chris, you want to help us put out, some video ones for a little while, and we can easily flip back to that format at any given time.
That's true.
It's not like it shuts down and it's gone and we can't do it. Chris is still there. The relationship will still be there. So for whatever reason, we feel like we have a big show. All I got to do is pick up the phone, pick up Skype, and say, hey, we've got something. Do you think you have some time where we can at least put it out? We may not be able to do it live, but we'll be able to put it out there for release on Jupiter Broadcasting as well. So everybody will still be able to see it in all its glory. I for the time being, while things slow down, and I understand it's funny I say slow down considering we've got season 6 coming up.
Well, I mean, there's some conscious thought to that, because Stoked Radio will pick up right there. I have full respect for all of the podcasts that cover Stowe, but it's our intention. Stoked Radio will be the best audio podcast talking about Star Trek Online, and this is the perfect time for a new show to pick up and have something interesting to talk about. It's the essential ingredient that a podcast needs, is something that's great to talk about, and that's what's perfect for Stoked Radio to pick it up from there. And that's why it doesn't make sense to completely end it, because there's still audience demand for this show. I mean, we've done the poll, we did the voting, and it's still early. There's not a ton of votes yet. Mostly I polled people in our Jupiter Signal newsletter. That's people who were subscribed to that found out first, and they kind of got the backstory. And they had this poll, and we have 301 votes that people want their weekly Stoked audio fix, and 122 votes saying no thanks. So it's a 71 to 29% ratio right now.
Yeah, you put it out on the Jupiter Signal. The minute I got the Jupiter Signal, I went and put it on the Stowe forums and put it out on Twitter, and it started to really take off at that point. I also want to say something to the community at large in regards to the thread from the last episode. I want to thank everybody for all the great comments, the great discussion when we put out that episode Tuesday. Everybody here in the JB Live chat, and those watching and those who will be listening on Tuesday when this episode releases, I want to thank you for all the support and sticking with us through the transition from Jeremy to Jupiter Force, and hopefully on into the future of Stoked Radio. Thank you very much for all your support, for all the great comments. I understand I didn't make friends with everybody, but there's a lot of people out there who love the way the show was going. Yeah, I understand. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. It affects us here at Stoke just as much as it's going to affect the viewers. We hope you enjoy.
It's not a decision that's been made lightly. I want everyone to understand, and I don't want anyone to think any one particular thing. It's a collection of business reasons. It's a whole lot. It's a matter of family time on my part and spending time with my families on Saturdays. There's a whole range. It's a very complex, dynamic issue, and one that I spent a considerable amount of time thinking about, because I am very aware of how some people, this show is it's very important to them, and it's part of their weekly routine. And I know how awful it is when something that you love tuning into every single week goes away. I felt that way when The Next Generation ended, but what helped And this is not an apt comparison. I almost hate to make it. But this is a better comparison. When The Next Generation ended, I knew I could continue to watch Deep Space Nine. And that sort of, that felt better. And that's what I hope Stoked Radio will be. It's from the same people, the same creators. It'll follow the same production standards. And it's just going to be the next generation of that show.
And like I said, even though it's transitioning to a primary audio show, we are going to be putting out video supplements. We're still going to be networking with the newly infused Foundry Files with Starbase UGC. I can't wait to see their first episode, their premiere episode there. So, the next episode is Stoked. I'll go ahead and let Chris talk about and tease what we're going to be doing with what I'm calling the series finale.
Yeah,
the big blowout here.
Yeah, so we'll make episode 126 the last episode of Stoked. That'll be next week's episode. It'll be back at our regular Saturday 11 a.m. time over jblive.tv if you'd like to join us for the last video edition of Stoked. And we're going to kind of go through the best of. We're going to do the segments that we love doing on this show, and we're just going to have one last great episode of Stoked. Nothing all that spectacular. We might have a few clips that we'll play and have a few familiar faces on that haven't been on for a while. But other than that, it's going to be a traditional episode. We're just going to give it one last hurrah, and that'll be Stoked 126. And then I foresee, although the details are still in formation, we probably will have more information in Stoked 126. But I foresee potentially a week or two of transition time to get Stoked Radio up and going.
There's going to be a little bit of downtime. Yeah,
Maybe.
There's going to be a little bit of downtime. And here's the thing also. And something I didn't put in our show notes that I wanted to bring up. We still have the huge Star Trek Las Vegas convention and the dev panel going on there. Most likely, even though at this point, and I'll be broadcasting Stoked Radio live from the convention, we're also going to be bringing a lot of video back. So at that point, when we start crunching all that video and we get it back into town, you'll probably see Stoked Radio do a video show for until we run out of recorded content from the convention. So, understand that it's coming. It's still going to be there. It's still going to be the Stoked that you basically know. It's just not going to be primarily video. You're still going to hear the same common voices. You're still going to hear the same people. And then you'll still be able to go on a separate link to our show notes and look at the videos,
if
look at what
demands
we were
a
looking
video,
at.
We can post it up on YouTube and give you guys a link in the show notes, maybe embed it in the show notes, those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
But the idea is we want to take the show to a point where it is not cost prohibitive to do. In fact, maybe even a step, below that, where it's not even just borderline, but it's safe in the cost zones. That way it's not up on the chopping block, and then it's sustainable, and we can just keep doing it. And like Mav said, we could always scale it back up down the road.
Absolutely,
if there's demand.
If there's enough demand for it, and things start looking up, and it's like, hey, there's great stuff. Maybe we could bring it back for a little while, and start putting out the video ones. Then we'll go ahead and do it by all means, But if we can get to that nice butter zone where it's cost effective for everybody in line, and we're able to do it, that's what we're looking for right now. We would rather do it this way than to completely cut everybody off and leave everybody going, now what do we do? Now where do we go?
Yeah.
So this is the option that we are presenting, that I'm hoping Jupiter Force, my fleet, along with Chris and Jupiter Broadcasting, the team that we can work together to continue to bring Stoked to you at the best quality we can.
There you go. All right, well, be sure to tune in for episode 126. That'll be next week's episode of Stoked, live on Saturday, 11 a.m. Pacific at jblive.tv, or available for download the following Tuesday. And then stay tuned for more information about Stoked Radio. All right, Matt, well, thanks for joining me and kicking around the news and community feedback.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone, we'll see you right back here next week. Here we go. Start the program. Protect civilian transport as long as you can. Okay, here we go.
I heard everybody.
Oh, I don't have aft torpedoes on this build. I'm sitting like, why is my aft torpedo not firing?
He's pointing his butt at everybody. Like, come on.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on here? I thought I had my transphasic torpedo. Come on, you guys. We just got seconds left. We can do it. I'm bringing in the hollow team. Come on. 1%. We can do it. Yeah! Got him. Sweet. Now they can take the server down.